Friends, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a very chitty chatty one. I'm going to dump a lot of makeup information on you while also using it as therapy. I'm having a really off day and I didn't know what else to do other than paint my face. So grab a snack, grab your favorite drink, because that is what I did. It always makes me feel better. Go and grab yours and let's do some makeup together. Now I'm not going to do my eyes in this one. This is a part of another tutorial that'll be coming up very soon. So today is just all skin. Alright, let's get started. So the first thing that I do when I want to put a whole bunch of makeup on and I'm not having a great skin day is to go and cleanse. So I just went and did that. I just used the MK Beauty oil. It's the oil wash. I don't know what it's called. Yeah, so you want to make sure that your skin's clean. One thing that you can do if you don't feel like doing a cleanse, or maybe you're just not used to doing that, is you can go ahead and use a micellar water or a toner or something to just get all of the whatever's, you know, is on your skin. Like if you've touched it, if you sneeze, you blow your nose, that sort of thing. So you got a nice clean base, especially when you are like me and you have stress breakouts everywhere. You want to make sure that you're not putting any more gunk onto the skin. What I always tend to do with my makeup is I go in with my serumizer and then my balm. These have become my favorite skincare items in the last maybe 6 months. Like I put them on religiously before any makeup. Even when I'm not doing makeup, I will just put them on. I only put like 1 scoop, really. Broken down into the 4 parts of my face. Like I don't use a lot. There was one day where I did use more than what I needed, and it did break down my makeup faster. For reference, if you're new here, I have oily combination skin, acne prone, blackhead, central texture is here to stay kind of skin, and I live in Australia where it is currently the middle of summer and it is stinging hot. So the aim of today's makeup is to get it on to make myself feel better. I'm also going to show you how to cover up the bads. Not the bads, the ickies, whatever you want to call it. Not having a great day. Just feel really anxious. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to do my makeup and pack my house because I've got to move. So it's usually now that I would go ahead and do my eyes, but because I went and did my eyes first, we did skincare, it's usually just to let it sink in for a little bit. It doesn't really matter too much. Because we're trying to make myself feel better, I'm gonna exfoliate my lips. This is just the e.l.f. lip exfoliator. So I'm gonna start by spraying with Fix Plus. I never understood the hype around Fix Plus until I got it. And when I say that they were right, I mean that they were right. It just plumps and keeps everything fresh and going, and it's really nice. I would recommend you giving it a try. So I'm not usually a primer person. I don't tend to wear a lot of primers unless it's the summertime. Because of my skin type and the amount of makeup that I wear, I don't want it to move. My oil tends to be right in the center of my face, so I'm going to go in with a primer. This is the Studio Fix. This is the Matte Fine 12-hour Shine Control Primer. I have my glasses on my head, but do you think I'm going to use them to read? No. I only take a tiny little bit because I only really want to put it in a tiny space. I'm using my hands to rub it together to activate it, and I'm kind of just pushing it right here on the sides of my nose. I wear my glasses all the time. I cannot see without them. So here is a very prominent part that I need to make sure is prepped properly. Just here in between my eyebrows, because of the way that my face naturally is, the way I was born with it, I have bumps here. So they tend to look shiny even when they're not. So anything I can do to prevent extra shine, perfect. And then the spiral lines because I do have extra plum cheeks. They are real. So really just here is where I want to put this primer. I'm not rubbing it in, I'm pushing it into the skin. And normally from here what I would do would be starting my underpainting, but because I have some blemishes that I want to cover up because they decided to show up out of nowhere, I am going to use a small brush. Now I got these from Big W. This brand is called Lavish and it's the Precise Blender. The head of it looks like this. It looks very similar to the old Real Techniques, what was it? It was the orange one, but it was more pointed. This is more rounded, so it's thin and flat like that. It'd be great for packing on like a foil eyeshadow in a small area too, by the way, just saying. I'm gonna use it to pick up my concealer. I'm gonna go in with my MAC concealer palette. This is the light one. This is the Studio Fix Conceal and Correct palette. I'm not sure what the names of the shades are, but if you have the light palette, this is what I'm using. Now, right now I am extra pale. I haven't been outside in a very long time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in with this top one here and mix in a tiny little bit of the one next to it. This is my personal palette, so I'm not too fussed about going directly into it. I usually just use a brush or my finger. But if you are working on a client, you would want to use a spatula to scrape some out, put some on a palette or something to avoid cross-contamination. It also does help when you're mixing specific shades. But anyway, I've got a bit on here, and I'm just going to press it right on top. We've left enough time, I reckon it's plenty of time, for that skincare to sink in. And even though I have more blemishes than what I'm covering, these are the main ones that are really bugging me down. So I want to focus on those. I'm not going to touch my neck because I'm not going anywhere, it doesn't matter. But usually I would go for the worst ones first, go through with my foundation routine, and then go in and do the spot concealing afterwards. While I'm here, I'm going to just let this sit for a couple of minutes and go in and correct just a little bit underneath my eyes because I've got such a dark top heavy look on today as well. This will help keep the under half of my eyes nice and light and bright, but they're a little bit dark. So I'm going to go in with this bottom one here, which is more of a peachy tone, and I'm going to take my finger. I'm only going to get a little bit, and I'm going to warm it up in my fingers, and then I'm just going to press it in just where that darkness is on the bottom and just tap it. So this is the point where I am going to use my finger and the warmth again just to tap over the concealer spots. I don't want to blend into skin so you can't see it at this point. I just want to tap the edges and just make sure that it is pushed into the skin. We've already got our protective layer of skincare over the top of that blemish, so we don't need to be concerned about pushing any more product into it. We just need to tap out those edges so that whatever layer we put on next doesn't disturb it either or look cakey in that area because of the thickness of the layers. Okay, so depending on the kind of makeup that I'm wearing on my eyes, and depending on the environment that I'm in, and depending on what my skin is doing, depends on what foundation routine I pull out of my bag, really. I've got about 3 that I go between depending on how I'm feeling, what I'm doing, where I'm going, that sort of thing. But typically they all have the same underlying base. For this full coverage and covering up and perfection kind of feeling, making myself feel better kind of vibe, we're going to go with my full coverage, really done, because that's how we're doing it today. So with this one, I tend to do very extreme underpainting. it's just so much fun. So I usually go between a few different products. I'm going to stick with MAC for this one because it's just going to be a MAC tutorial, but I'll go between this palette here and the NARS cream bronzer. The shade I used with the NARS one is called Casino. With this palette, I'm still figuring out which one I like best. I tend to go between this one and this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to dip in to the two of them, and that will just mix them on my brush. Like I said, this is my own personal makeup. I don't use this on anyone else. So I'm more than happy to go into the pans. If you were using this on a client, like I said earlier, you would want to use a spatula or something to scrape it out for the sake of sanitary purposes. The brush that I like to use, or the kind of brush that I like to use when I'm doing my underpainting, depends on what I'm doing. So for this underpainting layer, I use the MCO Beauty Foundation brush. The reason why is because it is thin, it is dense, and the top is rounded. And even though it looks like a duo fiber, it is not. So it's not scratchy, it's really soft, it's compact and dense, but it's really good for blending out as well. Because of my technique of pushing it in, I want to have this, like the shorter is the word I'm looking for, shorter bristles, because I don't want it to be going onto my skin and then the brush bending, because that's just not going to be doing anything other than irritating the skin and lifting up whatever I'm putting on underneath whatever is there, you know what I mean? So with this, I'm going to take that mixture that I've made on the brush. Everyone's face shape is going to be different. If you want a more in-depth kind of like how to place or where to place on face shapes, let me know and I will do that, but I'm just going to do what I do on myself. So for me, I tend to go from the top of my ear and I go to my outer where my makeup stops, really. Yeah, it's about there. So you want the darkest part to be at the back and push it in. And depending on the kind of style that you want to go for, you can go just there, you could go everywhere, you could do full highlight contour underneath. I'm just trying to get some shape back into my face. Stress really does a number on your body. Depending on how I'm feeling will depend on whether I put it down here. I'm going to do today. Just remember, if you're going to do anything along your jawline and your neck, that you blend it down. Don't forget that it's there. The other thing that I like to do is just take it here in those two little bits where my hairline is. So I have what's called a widow's peak, so it kind of looks like an M, and it makes my forehead look bigger in some areas than what I like, and that I feel just brings it down a little bit and gives kind of more of that streamline shape, I guess you could say. So next is blush, and I'm going to go in with a mixture of these two. This one has been my favorite since it came out. This is the So Natural Glow Play blush, and I recently just got this, and it is the Ginger Luck. They are so nice. I am obsessed with the Glow Play formula, and they're quite similar between the two, but this one just has a little bit more pink peach warmth in it, so I can bring these two together to create my neutral. It's probably not even the right wording, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same brush. I'm going to start with Ginger Luck first because it is darker. It's going to really get that into my brush. Again, this is your base layer, this is your underpaint, so you need to go more than what you want, or more than what you want for the final end product, because of the way that underpainting works and the coverage and the layers and everything. So you want to make sure that you're not just putting it on for you not to be able to see it. Does that make sense? There are so many more tutorials out there and people talking about underpainting that actually have a proper understanding of it, way more better than I do. Articulating is not my strong suit, so I do apologize, but I'm trying. So really, I'm doing the same steps. I'm pushing this into my cheek, but I'm kind of creating that line work. Now, for me personally, this is the place that I like to have my blush. I like it to mix into everything, and I like it to go up into my temples just a little bit, because I feel like I don't have a lot of color, and at this point in time, I don't have a lot of structure to my face. And this helps me feel like I can bring some of that back so that I can actually see my structure in the way that I like to look. After I've laid down that first color, I go into my second one. So again, this is So Natural. I've had this since the release. This was, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. It's probably way out of date. I don't care. I don't care. I'm not throwing it out. It is my favorite. Again, mixing it in. The brush will have a bit of your first color still left in there, so it kind of does that little mixy thing in the brush too. And this, I just like to tap over the front bit, so not going up to the temple with this one. This just helps to give that look of dimensional color. We're not 2D, but when we put makeup on and we don't have that dimension and shade range within our makeup placement, it doesn't look right. Does that make sense? Then the last thing that I like to do with this brush is just tap a little bit over my nose. Whatever is left on the brush, I didn't put any more on there. I also take that on the edge of the contour shade that we put down along my hairline. Okay, I kind of feel like I look like a snowman. Why do I look like a snowman? I don't know. Anyway, so at this point, you've got contour, blush, you've got concealer, you've got corrector on, and now we've got a whole lot of creams on our face that have done the semi-set thing that they tend to do. Even if they're not, setting products, once they hit air, they tend to dry down. Once they blend, they get thinner, they don't move as much. Because we aren't anywhere near finished our placement and blending of products, one thing that I like to do, and I learned this from Miss Megan Robinson, Get Your Fix Plus. This is a staple throughout my whole routine, especially when I'm doing this full intense one. So at this point, I do a full spray. What this does is it basically brings the creams back to life on your skin while helping them meld, while the next layer being put on stays where it needs to stay and doesn't, it's science. That's just what it has to be. But it works, okay? I beg you to try it. So this is the part where it can be a little bit scary and intimidating for people who haven't done it before. It was intimidating for me when I first tried it as well. This is when we put our foundation on. And we got to put it all over this. I am using the MAC Studio Fix, and this is in the shade N4.5. I'm just going to give it a good shake. Now this is where I changed my brush as well. I'm a brush person, I'm not a sponge person. I know sponges can give you a more full coverage look, and that's perfectly fine. I just can't do it. I try and I just can't. So we're just going to stick with brushes. Now the one thing I would recommend doing this for the first time would be take your time and slow down. You've got your base on, you know where you want your main structure of everything. Now it's time to just put your foundation on softly. Doing this too, I feel like you use a lot less product. Like you've got more products on your face, but each product is used less. Does that make sense? No. I've got my first pump. The brush that I'm switching to is the MCO Beauty Pro Foundation and Buffing Brush. I am obsessed with these brushes. Say what you want about the brand. We all have our own opinions and we're entitled to them, but the brushes are really, really nice. Switching to this one because it is like a bigger version of the foundation brush. And it is easier, I feel, especially doing this technique, to get your foundation on. So first off, I like to just get it all in, and then you want to start in a place that doesn't have any underpainting. This is so you can gauge what your brush feels like when it has products in it. And I'm pushing that into the skin. When it comes to your neck, you want to make sure you're using your foundation to go over whatever contour you will put underneath there as well, because that will give you your uniform look. And also down on this part of the face, there's no products. There's not really anything other than skincare. So you can be a little bit more intense with the pushing, a little bit of swirling and blending, especially down the neck to help blend it. Going for your second pump. Now this is where it can be scary. So I want the most product deposited in the center of my face. So that's where we start. And we go up and over. I don't go over that main color straight away. Kind of push it out and blend it out, and then just tap over the product. Now it's going to look scary and you think that it's going to go and that it's all just a waste and it's all gone for nothing, but once you start pushing it in and you blend and you stop and you look, you can see that that structure is still there. You've essentially created that structure that looks like it's natural while using your foundation to cover what you want to cover and create the way that you have your face. So realistically, at this point, if you feel like you need to have any more concealer or extra coverage put on, we would do it now. For me, if my blemishes were still showing through at this point, I would just ignore them. I know that's kind of counterproductive, but at this point, this amount of makeup, if it's not going to be covered under this amount of layers, it's not going to be covered at all. It's just going to be one of those days where you're just going to have to deal with it. But I'm happy with how everything is sitting. So I'm going to go in with my final cream, which is actually another foundation. This is the Studio Fix Tech, and I am in the shade NW10 in this formulation. This is what it looks like. What I am going to do is go in with the first brush and just take a teeny, literally tiny bit, and this is what I'm going to use in the center of my face. Remember, I said at the beginning, I have certain things that I do depending on the time, place, and where I'm wearing what I want out of it. Because it's hot, because I have a lot of makeup on, I want to make sure that this part here, where I need it to be set properly, full coverage, I need it to be it. And this is a step that I have started doing and incorporating instead of concealer. So with this, I put a teeny tiny bit here on my nose, on my chin, and right here on this inner corner of my eyes, and I just press that in. Doing this, for me, this step, it highlights without having too much product. It conceals whatever needs to be concealed in this area without having too many layers. It evens out the redness that I get in this part of my face. And it also adds in another long wear layer to the area of my skin that moves the most. Okay, so this is everything blended in. This is what the skin looks like. Doing this, for me personally, everyone's going to be different, but for me personally, this eliminates having to use so much concealer. It eliminates using so much product that I go through everything so fast, and it gives me the ability to kind of see my face the way that I want to present it to the world before adding different colors of blush and highlighters and things like that. This is just for me personally what I like to do. Everyone has their opinions. Next thing that we're going to do though is we're going to spray, because this is the point now where we go back in and we add in the color that we want. So like we had blush and contour there, but it wasn't there to look like blush and contour. It was there to look like structure. Does that make sense? I want to stick with these two because they are my favorites. So I'm going to go back in with these. This is where you can go in with any other shade that you like. I'm going to go back in with Ginger Luck, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. Put it down first, but instead of going up near the temples, I'm only taking a tiny little bit over the cheek where we placed it. Then I'm going to go back in with my So Natural, just on the front there, to really blend it. If you feel like at any point you've put too much on, the perk with cream is you can go back in with your foundation brush and just tap over those edges to get the seamlessness and just to lighten it up a little bit. So right now I'm going to go in with my final spray of Fix Plus. And now once that sits, we can go in with our powders. Before we do go in with powders though, I'm just going to show you what it looks like. So if you are not a powder person, this routine is still followable. Is that a word? And it does give a really nice, healthy sheen. It's just too much for me, especially in summer. Winter, I probably would just leave the house with this and maybe a little bit of setting powder, depending on, you know, my skin and how it was in that day and what I was doing. But okay, so now it's time for the powder layer. So we're just gonna do it. Okay. Depending on whether you're like a full contour person or whether you just like to do a really good bronze, depends on whether or not you follow these steps. For me, I go between, realistically I do both. And something that would really help is if you had a palette that had everything in it. So this is called, it's Light Medium Studio Fix Sculpt and Shape Contour Palette. It's the MAC one. Something like this that will have your different tones, your shades. I think there's a darker one, like a medium to dark palette as well. I wanted to show you that as an option. For me, I do like that, but I have also been obsessing over these two new palettes that came out. So this gold one here is the Sculpt and Glow. This one's been out for a little while, I do believe. This contour shade is perfect. I need it on its own. For my skin tone, it just works amazingly. And it comes with a highlighter in there that's really nice as well. And then this one here is a Studio Fix Pro Set and Blur Pressed Powder Duo. This came out on the website. I don't know how long it's been out technically, but on the website, it's new to me maybe a couple months ago, maybe a month or two ago. So what I am going to do is I'm going to take a smaller brush. Now this is a no-name brush. It's just a small round brush. And I'm going to take the contour shade. Does it have a name? No, it does. Sheer Tone Blush, actually, in the color Omega. So that makes a lot more sense. Yes, it's actually a sheer tone blush. Did not actually read the label. Anyway, I'm going to use this. So where we put the cream, I'm going to put it just underneath. And that creates that dimension of darkness to lightness. I'm not taking it any further than where my eye makeup finishes either. And depending on your face shape and the kind of look that you're going for, depends on how far you would bring it in. There are a lot of ways, I say, that you can learn to do it, and people who follow certain ways. It's really just up to you. Makeup is an art form. Do whatever you want with it. So then I can go in with my bronzer. I'm going to use this one today. I go between this one and I've got, this is the matte light rosy skin finish. I got the Radiance one as well. And I got the, is it Gimme Sun? I've got another one. Anyway, I go between those ones. This is what it looks like, and I'm going to switch to a big fluffy brush. This is the MCO Beauty powder brush. And I'm literally just going here. Get it on there. Shake him off, tap it, do whatever you gotta do. And then this is kind of just gonna go over to meld everything together. This is what gives you your warmth back. This is what gives you the sunlight. This is the bronzing. Now remember, bronzer can be overdone very quickly. We've all been there. I'm gonna go back in with Omega again. And this is where I'm going to redo the jaw. So we have our cream base, we've got a foundation on, and this is the strategic lacing. So for me, I'm putting it on the outer part here. And then, depending on how your face is, will depend on what extra bits that you do. For me personally, the way that my chin is, I have indentations that come up here, and then I have the excess bit that kind of, I guess you would call them jowls, I don't know. When I'm not feeling great, when I'm sick, and when I'm in a flare-up, I tend to swell in my face, which is currently what's happening. So for me, I see it more when I smile. So it's here. My chin's here, and it's this bit here that along my face that gets a little bit poofy. So under my chin is fine. It's a little bit underneath that or behind that is where I want to add the shadow to kind of eliminate the look of the floof. So for me, if I do that and just blend it down a little bit more, instead of just putting it underneath my chin, because all that would do would be counteracting what I'm trying to do, because it's lighter, because it's lower, it's getting more light than this part. Does that make sense? So now we're going to go in with blush. You could still obviously leave the cheeks as they are. We've got a lot of blush layered on and you have that color and that dimension there, but for me it's just never enough. I'm going to go in with this one. Now this one is new. I have not tried this one yet. I'm very excited about this one. This is the Hushed Tone Extra Dimension. How pretty is that? Now I'm just going to go back in with the same brush that I used for my bronzer, and I'm just going to get it on there, tap it off. I haven't used it, so I don't know how pigmented it is, but I'm just going to sweep it back just on the fronts there. Okay, so right now it is time for highlighter. We're nearly there. I got this recently, and this is the Hyper Real Glow palette, and you have these 3 shades. So I am going to take a mix between this one and this one. So if I'm reading this correctly, I'm going to mix Flash and Awe and Rosy Glow together. I'm going to take a small pointed, it's kind of really good for concealer under the eyes actually, now that I'm looking at it. This is from the brand that I mentioned earlier, the Lavish brand, and this is their highlighter brush. And I'm just literally going to mix the 2 on the brush, tap it off. And because we put down the jelly slime, sounds amazing, it's going to have something to really stick to and help bring that shine out without having to put so much on. I am all for heavy makeup. What I'm not for is heavy makeup that's applied really thickly that makes you feel uncomfortable. Makeup's not meant to make you feel uncomfortable. So the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe off that brush. I need to get myself another one because it is really nice. I like the point. I'm going to go back into the purple palette. This is the Studio Fix Pro Set and Blur Press Powder Duo. And I'm going to go in with the purple first. And this is what I'm going to use to set underneath my eyes. And I'm just tapping it in to that area where we have the main bit of product. There's a lot of product underneath the eyes right now, and because of the way that my face is, the structure of it, but also the way that my skin type is, I'm using pressing movements to make sure that every layer is set. But using the purple powder will also help in the lower parts of just the natural divots of my skin to stay lighter in the times where you look at me and I might have the shadow on my face or the way that the light hits me. Using a brightening powder helps. It doesn't take it away, but it helps. Then I'm going to switch over to the white one, or the translucent shade, and I'm just going to go over it and take it all underneath the eye makeup to help that blend and transition into the highlighter. And then I'm going to tap that in between my eyebrows, just on the tops of, because that's where I have the natural peak and where I get red and oily. Down the top of my nose, on my lip, and my chin. Now at this point we've got so many layers, and right now we have a lot of powder on the face that has made us 2D again. So the final thing that we want to do is we want to set everything with a spray, and I'm going to use the Fix Plus Stay Over. So this is the Fix Plus, but this has the setting power. Does that make sense? doing that right at the end, after powders, after creams, after everything, when you're happy with how your makeup is, it brings the parts of your face that are powdered back to life while also setting everything in place. So you can use a fan, you can just let it dry. I have a fan somewhere. My kids took it. I don't know where it is. So we go back to the old faithful and just use my mirror as a fan to help it along. So that is the skin done. I feel like shit still, but I look better. So I'm gonna pull you in a little bit closer so you can see the skin and how it's sitting. Still have that glow, you're still set. You have everything that you need. You have your coverage, you have your dimension, you've got your structure while having your color, while feeling better. Yes, that's what I want, because I need to feel better. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope that you're having a better day than I am, and I hope that you're all doing really, really well. And if you have any questions, let me know. And if there's anything that you want to see, let me know. I will just say we are moving in, like, as of today, like 2 days, 2 whole days. So all this is going to be packed up, and this is not going to be seen on here again. Maybe there might be one video that comes up before the next, I don't know. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you're having a fantastic day or night wherever you are, and when you're watching this, and I'll see you in my next video.